All right, good evening. I'd like to call to order our work session for Tuesday, May 28th, 2019. We're here to cover a couple of things during our work session. We've got a Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee update regarding Riverbend Park. We'll do that till 6:30. Then we've got a Sister City presentation at 6:30 and an advisory committee interview at 6:50. The format of our work sessions is typically we do not have time built into the work sessions for public comment. So I know there's a couple of members of the public here. If you do want to have comment on any of these items, we ask you to please wait until the start of our regular meeting, which is at 7 o'clock, and we do have a public comment segment shortly after we call that meeting to order, and we'd welcome any public comment during that time. So at this time, we'll go ahead and get started with our first item.
Thank you, Mayor. Both the PROSTAC chair and vice chair here tonight to give an update to the board based on their most recent community engagement on the discussion and investigation into additional features in the northern part of Rock Creek. Allison, did you have something to start with?
Yes, I could do a quick introduction here.
Okay.
Good evening,
Gotcha.
Allison James, town staff. The agenda item for tonight is an update for the community engagement process for potential play amenities north of Rock Creek Parkway and east of McCaslin. The engagement process began in April with the distribution of information at Arbor Day and a survey opening for the public. We had our first workshop 2 weeks ago on May 15th, and the maps before you illustrate participant feedback. We had 33 participants. The comment data from the maps was aggregated and included in the packet. The next workshop is this Saturday on June 1st at Riverbend Park at 10:30. And since last week's data, which is in the packet, we've had 200 additional surveys for a total of 291 participants. Data trends are now showing 45% yes and 54% no. PROSTAC chair and vice chair are here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Allison. Would you guys like to add anything?
I'm sorry, Allison, could you repeat that number one more time? I missed it. 45, 55.
54. 45, 54.
Okay.
I guess the only thing else I would add is that there's a lot of data, there's a lot of information, and there's different ways to break it down. And we did make sure that there was different locations of addresses, so you can tell addresses and responses based on that. But we didn't break it all down and try and go through all the analysis. It's still open, right, until Monday?
June 10th.
Oh, yeah, another couple weeks. So it's still open for a little bit longer. We're in the middle of it, and it's in the middle of the process. So there is feedback, but it's not final yet.
With the additional survey results that came in, did those skew toward any geographic area, or was it pretty similar to the original respondents?
I don't know if it skewed one way or another.
We haven't really gone through all of the data with a fine-tooth comb yet because we have had so many people continuing to engage.
Sure.
And on June 10th, when we close the survey out, we plan to, try to really look through that data very meticulously.
That makes sense. Just wanted to check if it was one street all of a sudden chiming in or what happened.
No.
Just to let you know, there's 43% of the data does come from what we call Zone 3, which is the area right around the park. And that's fairly consistent, the first 100 and then the next couple hundred.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions?
Okay. Ken?
Yeah, so again, thank you guys for doing this. It's a heavy load for sure to run the public engagement and manage the survey. I think the real value of tonight, since it's only a snapshot in time, seeing the yeses and nos doesn't really bring a lot of value, but seeing the presentation of the data does. I'd just like to make a few comments as what I think would be helpful for me, at least, when we get to the end of this process. If we could see more drilled down data, specifically for Zone 3. All this data was fantastic, and it's town-wide. If we could have the same data drill down to Zone 3, that way we know what the impacted area really feels about it. And then if we could also get additional data from within Zone 3 that breaks yeses, nos down to street level. Because I know people are putting in their streets. So if we could use that street level view to see, okay, there's a specific area that really has the high demand, or there's a specific area that really says no, that would also be helpful.
And Ken, I'll just point out, we did do a quick look at just Zone 3 and some of the addresses in Zone 3, and there is different opinions based on where you are in Zone 3.
Yep.
And without saying all the yeses and nos, there was definitely some, you could see there was some for or against in certain zones.
And that-
in 3, just based on street address.
Perfect. And that's kind of what I assume we'd end up getting at. And
So
that's,
you can look down into that level of detail, but it's definitely, without seeing all the responses, it's, there's a generalization.
Perfect. And then as we near the end of the survey period, if we could just do one more marketing blitz to really make sure that everyone in town knows about it. So maybe, I believe it closes on a Monday, if I remember, if I remember.
June 10th, which
Yeah,
is
a Monday. Yeah, so if we could do it the week before and then even maybe one more time that Monday saying that it's closing today, get your comments in if you haven't done so. Just make sure we get everybody's feedback, that'd be great. And then, I don't know, Corey, if you guys know this, or maybe Allison, you do. I know our contractor was going to do a little bit of work to see if any of the alternative locations might be feasible. Do we have any updates on that?
The only update that I have is some of the slopes are a little bit steeper in those areas, so they would require potentially more work and more expense, but it could be possible.
So nothing to completely rule them out, just a more expensive product. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Others, questions, comments?
In terms of the survey data, I understand the survey is still open and we haven't compiled the information in terms of where people live and what their response is as to whether or not they're in support or against. But when the survey is closed, will we have that data based on the location?
Yes, we just have to pull all of the answers and match them to for and against.
Okay. And just generally speaking, when we've done parks in the past, have we ever done similar surveys to the community to see if there was a need before we went forward with, like, for example, Wildflower Park or Founders Park? Was there a survey before the town actually went through the planning process?
Patrick Hammer, town staff. We did not do SurveyMonkey for either Founders Park or for Wildflower Park. At that time, ProStack was holding more quarterly engagement meetings, so the process was much longer. Wildflower was about a 2-year process, so it percolated very slowly. And then when it got closer, ProStack members kind of went door to door with staff, and we did more intercept interviews and had a few more kind of open houses, but not official survey.
And thanks for that, when we had the kind of informal process that ProStack was engaged in, was there similar levels of opposition that we're seeing here? Right now it looks like it's split a little more against than for. With Founders, with Wildflower, any of the other parks that we've had, engagement with the community, has there been any sort of similar, just anecdotally speaking, levels to opposition?
Yeah. Wildflower Park at times was very contentious just about the type of use. I think the benefit there is people at the time feared maybe there would be a school put into place or eventual development put into place. But we did several last-minute revisions on Wildflower Park to either add amenities or remove amenities based upon, the public's feelings. So Founders Park was not nearly as contentious, but Wildflower had its moments. And then most recently, pickleball was the other one that was pretty hot at times.
Right. Pickleball, though, and I was actually going to bring that up a little later, but one of the issues that came up with pickleball was that it was kind of twice what we budgeted for, and then there was issues with the floodplain. And then we also didn't know kind of what demand there really was with the community as to actually delivering on that amenity. And I think since that time, we've actually heard probably more from the community about pickleball, frankly, than anything else in the Parks and Rec space.
Yeah, agreed. Staff has heard similar. Yeah.
So, yeah, frankly, I think that's not on the agenda for tonight, but it's something that I think maybe we should consider revisiting, because I think the reasons why we didn't move forward with pickleball a year or so ago may not necessarily be similarly shared reasons with this board. Just Patrick, with respect to Riverbend, what's your gut telling you right now? Do you think this is something we should continue to move forward on? Or are there any red flags?
Yeah, I mean, from the get-go, we knew there were site issues. We were told early on there's a reason why there's not a park there now, and that was because it was a detention pond, and there was, street proximity issues. Internally as a staff, we've discussed, the response has been pretty visceral. So I don't know what it would be like to try to get a construction crew over there and then create a park environment that so clearly has neighbors who are opposed to it. So I think right now, at least staff's experience has been far more on the negative side than it has the positive side. I do think that there's some opportunities in that area. I think that there's potential interaction with Tract H. I think that there's probably some creativity that we can do with some of the trail networks. I mean, you're seeing more interactive trail play that could maybe kind of spread this out a little bit. But I think in terms of the original thought, which was Riverbend, it's going to get harder and harder to kind of justify that space. But I do think there's opportunities over there.
So two kind of related questions. With respect to actually installing some sort of play structure or kind of smaller play equipment, do you have an opinion as to whether or not Riverbend is the appropriate place to locate that equipment, or somewhere else? And if it's somewhere else, where?
I don't know which map. You mind if I pull up a quick Google map?
Please.
So one of the early concepts that we discussed very briefly with ProStack almost a year ago was this opportunity to try to make some type of movement-based play or movement-based activity along this trail system, connecting basically the waterways, the drainage ways, and trying to get a little bit creative with finding pockets of nature play, not maybe something that's going to sit, kind of in the detention basin, but something as a family wanted to move along, or as kids or teens wanted to move along, you could potentially find these pockets along the trail system to have smaller areas of play, whether that's climbing stones or jumping stones or interpretive signage, or with some of the stuff that we're working on with the creative placemaking, even temporary art exhibits that individuals and kids can participate in, that really tries to use the corridor here, stretching even all the way potentially up to what we call Bowes Pond, and making it a little bit more of a destination play where it wasn't, the bright colored plastic stuck in the ground, which at least from staff's understanding was never really the thought. That actually hasn't been a trend. Even going back to Wildflower Park, we really tried to shy away from kind of the large plastic. So that was one of the ideas that we had really kind of thrown around early, was creating this experience that you can have navigating the trail all the way down here to 88. That way, if you were closer to East River Bend, there could be some level of activity along the trail, but it wasn't this big congregation point that would cause traffic issues. You know, if you got up here a little bit closer to the east side, or even kind of over here by Rogan, you could come down and there'd be some kind of interaction. A couple of ideas that we did discuss early for the park is we for years have been hearing about wanting to potentially improve the hillside for sledding. It's a use that was already active in this area. So one of the things that we had considered a while ago prior to this exercise was, you know, adding seating areas for parents, you know, to watch kids sled. We looked at solar charging benches. That way, if kids and or adults kind of wanted to hang out in this area, which we know that they have a tendency to do, you could potentially charge your phone. So we were trying to really find some of those creative uses. We did get an interesting comment at the last open house of a potential embankment slide sunk down into the hillside. ProStack had floated that idea previously at a site which didn't really make a lot of sense on the south side of town. So we really started trying to brainstorm some of these kind of lower level, more movement-based activities that would provide something, but wouldn't have, you know, the big playground feel to it. This area over here, Allison mentioned earlier, we have had our contractor look at this. It is in a drainage way, I think, probably a little bit more difficult to deal with once we'd get urban drainage involved. You know, anytime you take up space in a drainage way, you have to make up for it elsewhere. Given some of the neighborhood response, I don't know that you're going to get a whole lot of a different response, you know, at this point by interacting or asking the residents their opinion about a play structure over here. We did see some interesting comments about still trying to figure out within this kind of grander corridor up here if there were opportunities for play, and I think that that's got some merit to it.
So if you had your way and you had unlimited funds and unlimited power to make a decision, what would you do?
I think really exploring how to better utilize the trail system and have small pockets of interactive play that encourage people instead of like a destination play where you come and you're hanging out for several hours. It's something that can get you activated and move from point A to point B. And then I think that, you know, depending on what happens in the future, maybe exploring something up in this corridor here and maybe circling back around, you know, with the developer and saying, you know, what can we do to accommodate these residents plus these residents as well as over on Carville. So I do think that there are some things that we could actually improve after listening to the comments down in Riverbend. We heard a lot about passive space. I think we can actually do a better job of providing passive space. I think we could provide seating for people that want seating. You know, I wouldn't mind seeing some changes to the sledding hill. It's a use that's going out there anyway. I think that we could probably make that a little bit more fun. I like the idea of an embankment slide. That may not be a popular idea, but it's a low-level feature that's not visible above ground. It allows some type of activity where kids are running up and down the hill. So those would be my first thoughts, is exploring something we can really do to kind of wow up the trail connectivity, and then exploring something in this general area.
Okay, thanks.
Kevin.
So Patrick, and for ProStack, first, thanks for there's kind of a good news, bad news thing here, right? I mean, I'm really pleased with the amount of community engagement. Unfortunately, some of that community engagement has been kind of crossed the line where it feels like it's a bit too contentious. But the good news is we've done a nice job of letting the community know about a plan. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. There's plenty of opportunity to comment. I'll also just make a comment that none of this is done. We have no intent to pave over the existing space today and put up the big plastic play structures. I think all of us are committed to the engagement process and trying to figure out what the community desires here. So I don't know if I have a question. I just want to say, let's keep the process going, and let's make sure that, we run the survey out through the end of June. I do like the idea of finding some, if you could make that the, kind of the throughway and then activate that entire space. That feels like might be expensive just because it's a bigger area, right? And so if you're, the bigger area you're trying to develop, the more money you might do a very little in a very large amount of space, and it could run up the tab pretty high instead of trying to do not a lot, but trying to do something interesting with that small space. So I don't, I think the objective here was an update. I'm thrilled with the process that we followed. I thought it was really nice, and we continue to get engagement. We have 300 survey respondents, which is phenomenal, so I think let's keep getting the respondents. And I like the fact that we have the ability to slice the data. That's been a big pet peeve of mine, where we get survey respondents and it's hard to tell sort of where you are responding from. And I think this is great. And it's not that we're dismissing somebody's voice that doesn't live in Zone 3, but it's helpful to know that folks that live in Zone 3 might be dramatically opposed or in favor, as opposed to people that live in other zones that may feel differently. So I don't know if I have any questions, but I really like the process. I wish it didn't, hadn't put you and some others in a difficult situation, and I just want to express my gratitude for ProStack and you for sticking it out. I'll do my best to be there on Saturday morning. So, thanks.
Laura?
I also want to say thank you so much for the way the process has gone out. I had one question from the packet. It indicated that door hangers, that we've contracted someone to put those door hangers out. Have those actually gone out yet, or when would those go out?
Yes, we had one quick delay from the snow and the weather, but they were sent out, I think, by Thursday of last week.
Okay.
Everybody in Zone 3 received a door hanger.
Excellent. I think that's great news. I would also just echo Ken's direction. I'd really like to see at least one, if not two, more e-blasts go out between now and June 10th. Just covering our bases, making sure everyone is well aware.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Perfect. Thank you.
Neil?
So Allison and the rest of ProStack and Patrick, fantastic job. I want to echo what everyone's been saying. I think the engagement process is doing exactly what it should. I think ProStack got a lot of great feedback last week after the community engagement during the open comments. A lot of folks, in public comment expressed that they're happy that they're allowed to be part of this process, and I think that's kudos to the team to bring that in. I do have a question, and this is more of a scratch your head, go back in time kind of question. I mean, Riverbend, that area around the detention pond has 2 barbecues and 3, I want to call them phantom picnic tables, because they move, and I don't know how they move. But the real question is, at some point the town put in those barbecues. I've never seen anyone using them. Was there some sort of visualization of this being used for more than it's being used for? Can we sort of think about how we designed it 20 years ago, and have things changed?
So I think those were installed prior to anybody on staff being here, except for maybe Phyllis. But I mean, we're always looking at ways to improve areas that people use in town. So I mean, it's something that we can definitely evaluate.
Yeah, and if nothing else comes out of it, let's take those things out. I've literally never seen anyone use them in 10 years, and I could be wrong. I'm not out there all the time. They're just an obstruction, and they're sort of ugly. So if nothing else, let's at least get rid of things that aren't being used. And the picnic tables, I swear to God, we got to chain them to a tree, because if I see another kid push them into the lake, I'm going to scream. But great job, along the way. Thanks a lot.
Sandy? Okay. Any final comments?
I got a final comment. I was asking a couple questions before, but so we originally budgeted $700,000 for this playground, $50,000 for the planning process, and $700,000 for the playground. based on the results that we're seeing on the survey data, what we're hearing from the community, what we're hearing from Patrick, I don't think that, I think if we're going to make a decision on, planning something in zone 3, or whatever we're calling it, this northern area of Rock Creek, I think we need to make it clear to the public that we're going to preserve Riverbend Park as is, and if there's any amenity that gets added, it would be kind of these little, along the trails or something in a different location. But the thing that seemed overwhelming to me from the data that was returned from the surveys is everybody really appreciates the pristine natural surroundings of Riverbend, and for the neighbors that live around this area who bought their houses because of it, I don't think it's really fair to them that we're coming in here and all of a sudden saying we're fixing a problem that we're really creating. So personally, I'd be in favor of just moving on with something, making it clear to the community that we're not going to be doing a playground directly in Riverbend Park. If we're going to be doing some sort of installation, it's going to be along the trails, maybe in a different location, but Riverbend Park should be preserved, mainly because the community really preserves its current natural state. Now, I don't, the proudest thing I think that me personally on the board that we've done is when we're making something like the skate park, and it turns out to be a resounding success. And when we deliver an amenity that the community wants, I think it's great. I don't want to do something that is divisive and really kind of splits a neighborhood in half. So, frankly, I'd be in favor of, let's see what the planning process bears out, listen to the community, see about these alternatives that Patrick was kind of outlining. But then if it's a question of kind of redeploying resources, I'd be in favor of moving forward with building pickleball courts at Autry Park, revisiting that conversation, using the money that we budgeted for this playground to deliver an amenity that we've actually got a design for. There's already demand for it. Now with a skate park and a pump track and a bike park and a dog park, we could turn Autry Park into something great. So that's kind of where my head is on all of this. I was really surprised to see the really vocal opinion from the public being opposed to building a park. I thought everybody would be in favor of a park, but that's obviously not the case. So, I think we need to listen to the people and, not cause unnecessary stress in a situation like this.
Okay.
Could I respond to that? Yeah. So, Mark, I fully agree with you. I think we should be exploring and moving forward with all our alternatives possible to make sure that we are exploring those options, because I don't think Riverbend is as tenable as maybe it was once thought to be. Before we start talking about reprogramming, I think we need to see what the results are, though, because I think there still is a demand in the area. So let's get the results back. Let's see if that demand exists. And if the demand doesn't exist, then let's have that conversation. But let's let the survey process work itself out to see what's truly needed.
Yep. I was just going to agree. I agree with everything you said. I just think we need to listen and keep listening and just keep our ear to the ground through June 10th. We've got a defined process, and let's just keep that process through June 10th. I think sometimes when you're listening, and if there's something truly overwhelming, then you break the glass proverbially and say, okay, I'm going to, I don't need any more data. I think here it is still sort of 45, 55, and we're getting really good input from people around things like, gee, maybe an embankment slide's an idea, or maybe we need to activate more. So I think just continuing out the process, even though directionally I think we all know where this is going, continuing out the process I think is probably a good idea to continue to get information and data. So, but good suggestion.
Okay. I'll just close out by saying thanks to ProStack and staff for all the hard work on this, and to the public, thanks for your engagement and continued engagement, and just know that we're listening. We've not made there's no foregone conclusions here, and we are absolutely taking everybody's comments into consideration, and appreciate the feedback on all directions. So.
Mayor, just a
Yes.
clarification for staff and the committee. As far as messaging going forward, is it the board's direction to focus the messaging more on the alternatives that Patrick spoke to?
I'd like to see a focus on either the alternatives that Patrick spoke to, which I thought were interesting, as well as, I mean, question 10 in the survey to me gets at the heart of it. Do you see a need for new playground amenities somewhere in Zone 3? That's where the community is really split, and I think we kind of obscure that with all the other questions about what do you want, where would it be, et cetera. The first question is, do we need it at all?
Yeah, I think focusing as a Zone 3 need makes a lot more sense. And just a comment to ProStack, I would say on Saturday, please make sure we're communicating to the community that this is not Riverbend focused. It's a Zone 3 focus, just because I think messaging has led a lot of confusion to that effect and has led to a lot of concern. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks. All right. And again, if anyone has any public comment on this topic, we invite you to stay to our regular meeting, which is starts at 7 o'clock. We'll have public comment shortly after we get underway. All right. Next on our agenda for the work session is a presentation on a proposal to form a sister city relationship. We have Superior resident Narayan Shrestha here to introduce himself to us and introduce Superior to the idea of sister city relationship. This is something that other cities have done and Superior never has. So appreciate you introducing it to us.
Thank you.
And it's not a new idea either. You've come before the board before. So maybe just give a little introduction on yourself and a little bit about sister cities. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Folsom, and all the trustees and our fellow residents of Superior. My name is Narayan Shrestha, and I've been a resident in this wonderful town since 1993. And I've been involved with the sister city projects with Boulder LASAP for many years, then Boulder Jalapa many years. Then I found that it is very intriguing and interesting that to put cities together and making sure the two countries, not only just the cities, being a sister cities, that the countries becomes very close as a culturally and economically, tourism and all that, and most of all that to building the bridge together between the two cities. And learning all that, and I had a dream to make a sister city with Boulder and Kathmandu, which is just last August, unanimously they approved from the city of Boulder. Now we just signed the agreement, and also city of Kathmandu mayor approached and invited 10 members, delegation from city of Boulder going to Kathmandu in September. And I'm meeting with mayor day after tomorrow to make that plan formed. And this opportunity came to me back in when Susan Spence was the mayor, and we invited the mayor of Cadbury, the town that I was born and grew up there, and they had a beautiful visit, and mayor of that town returned back. He was the first elected mayor of the town, and he passed away 2 years later because of cancer. He was very young, and after that, the country went into a difficult time with the political situation, and the many 17,000 people died, killed each other, matter of fact, and the country wasn't very settled. And the State Department issued the travel warning, and we could not continue our process. Still, Mayor McCall and I met, and he was interested. He wanted to do it, but country still was not ready in Nepal. So we just dropped the ball. Then time came now in 2008, country started looking better and better politically, very nice to settle down. And just a few months ago, I started talking with Mayor Folsom, and this is the time, it's better than any other time. So I went and talked with the mayor of Cadbury, and they were very, very much happy, and they sent the letter of interest to the town of Superior, which I handed over to Mayor Folsom. And many of you probably talked, and I don't know where it's located and all that. It is the foot of Mount Makalu. It's a 5th highest mountain in the world, but don't try to climb Mount Everest. You know the result, right? 11 people died as of yesterday. It's so terrible. But Makalu is not that famous as Everest, but it's the 5th highest mountain in the world. And we are located, the city of Katbari located right foot of that mountain. And it has really growing very high gear with the economically and also the development and all that. What we are looking into is right now, not because I live here and I was born and raised over there, but it's the fact that we have, that city also doesn't have any sister city. We don't have here also sister city. With my experience, with many years working with sister cities, 2 different countries, and now is a 3rd one, and why not the country that I was born and raised, and I am here living for 43 years in the United States. So it is a time for us to do something and probably recognize our 2 cities with the help of your interest and their interest. And I'm being a person who can make this happen with your help. And I travel a lot. There are 7-8 times a year. And I have an interest over that city and interest in this city also. And it will be a beautiful thing to have our 2 cities become a sister city. Okay?
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction. One of the questions that's been raised in the process is, is there a cost? Is there a cost to the cities?
There is no cost to the city.
Maybe talk to that a little bit and just kind of how it might work,
Okay.
after the formal, after we would formally designate one's sister city, how things work.
As you all know, when the 2 sisters, one becomes rich, other becomes poor, the richer sister would like to help the poorer one. And this is like that. But don't think that city of Superior would have to come up with a certain amount of money and help them. No. We have a committee. We will have a committee after this. That committee will raise funds, not from the city of people like them. We become sisters and we go and reach out, and then there is a project they have, then we will do that. For instance, Boulder is giving a land to the Boulder Kathmandu sister city. And when they give a land, Kathmandu is providing bricks and wood from Nepal. They're shipping it. And the workers are also coming in here. Who is going to pay for it? The Kathmandu is paying for, the city of Kathmandu is paying for bricks and wood, the construction wood. And then the people who is going to build is going to come from there also. And we, the committee, is going to raise funds here. But the city doesn't have to pay anything. And similarly here also, if we have to do something over in Nepal, and we will have to raise funds, and locally there, locally here, but city, they don't have to do anything else. Literally, unless city has money, we wanted to help. We don't say no to Superior to give money or Katbari to give money here. It's just all up to you guys. Otherwise, we will do our work publicly. No commitment for you guys, for the city, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that answers?
That is.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions on the board?
Have we heard from any residents looking for us to become a sister city, or how did this come about?
There are, good question. There are over 30,000 Nepalese living in Colorado, especially Denver, Boulder metropolitan area. And there are over 1,500, close to 2,000 population living from that town, from Katbari, to Boulder, Longmont, Superior, Broomfield, and Denver area. And there are, every 6 months, we meet together in Broomfield Park there. And this 8th of June, we are meeting again. There are many, many people who are interested to see this Sister City project going on. And I'm the first one to come to Colorado from Nepal. That time, only 18 of us in the whole country. Now we have over 200,000 of us. So in Colorado, from that town, we are close to 2,000 people living right here. So in Superior, probably around 6 homes right now, but Boulder, Longmont, Broomfield, Lafayette, Louisville, there are many. Most of the restaurants you see around owned by that city people, okay? Yeah, there are a lot of interest, yes, but the residents in Superior, very few. Okay.
So first, thanks, and I've read about some of the work that you've done, so.
Thank you.
It's really quite a success story. So congratulations to
Well,
you.
thank you.
I'm very interested in a Sister City program. I think this is great. One of the I'm challenged by a couple different things. Number one, I'd like to have some more goals or objectives for what this means.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand enough about your hometown in
Sure.
terms of how we might be able to help your town, your hometown, or any sister city, whether or not it's by bringing, to your excellent point around two sisters, one's prospering, one's not. We're clearly a prospering town who can afford to, not suggesting our city, but many of our residents might afford to be aware of a sister city, and from a fundraising perspective, I could see some help. I'd like to better understand sort of where those funds would go. Are we talking about hospitals, clean water, schools, infrastructure? And I didn't see any of that, and maybe I think this is just a dialogue, an initial dialogue. So for me, that's one of the things that I'm interested in, sort of, what does this mean for us to have a sister city, and what does our twin require? And second, if we have a sister city program, which I'd personally be supportive of, I would like that program not to be unlike Boulder's program, where they will receive, I believe there's a sister city committee. They'll take applications, they'll consider those applications, and then add sister cities, and that's great. And that's how Kathmandu and other cities have been added, because there was some awareness. We're aware of your hometown because you're a resident and you're a success story, and again, congratulations. But I wonder if there are other sister cities that we might want to look into as well. And so those are my two thoughts.
Sure.
I think it's an initial dialogue, my pulse. I'm very interested. I'd like to understand how our residents could specifically help, and understand what are we doing to help. Again, schools, clean water, healthcare, hospitals, those types of things, infrastructure. And then number two, I would just suggest a little bit more structure to the application process.
Mm-hmm.
You're unsolicited making the suggestion. It's a great suggestion, but I think if we're going to follow the process, it might be better to sort of open it up, and maybe we noodle on it, and then we have a application and a process that you'd be front of the line for that application and process.
Thank you. Yeah, you brought that one very good question, is that we got to have a committee, and from the citizen in town of Superior, and I do have a candidates of that. And we've been talking this for a long time. So we do have that. But only thing is that we have to have that committee, as you said, that we have to process with the application here, written application. Then you guys have to think about and see that, and then approve it. This is just the initial introduction and keeping some information, giving some information to you all, and check it out. And then also I have, again, very, very much experience on this Sister City project, working with Boulder Lhasa Sister City, Boulder Jalapa, and I joined the mayor delegation in both countries, both cities, from Boulder. So, and copying that, I wanted to do something here in town of Superior, having a friendship with another city of different country, to have a friendship and sharing the culture and other aspects of our life between two cities. So I'm ready for that.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I'm also generally supportive of the idea of becoming a sister city. And I wanted to thank you, Mr. Shrestha, for coming forward with this. Obviously, you care about your homeland, you care about your hometown, you're very passionate about it. And I think that, you know, we really need to commend our citizens who come before the board with, you know, ways of just being active, engaged, and passionate about the things that they care about and bringing these things to our attention, because without people like you, you know, this would never come on our radar. And it's important that it does. So I think that that's really great. I think to Kevin's point, I'd like to understand a little more about sister cities in general. What are the success stories and what are the relationships that haven't necessarily worked out too well? And, you know, what can we learn from those success stories? Because I wouldn't want to just become a sister city with anybody.
Sure.
You know, I'd want to make sure that the relationship actually has, you know, tangible value for both communities. So, you know, to the extent that there are best practices that, you know, sister cities that have had successful relationships have adopted, I'd like to familiarize myself with those best practices and make sure that, you know, maybe obviously having a committee is one of those best practices, but, you know, what else can we do? You know, if we're going to be raising money, you know, how can we make sure that, you know, no fraud occurs and it's not, you know, actually put to, you know, improper purposes, that we're doing the most good for the work that we're putting into it. But,
Sure.
you know, in general, I think that this is a great idea. I'm really interested in learning more, and thank you for bringing this to the board.
Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say thank you for continuing to be involved with our community. I seem to recall that when I ran for the town board, you were one of the candidates that ran against me. And it's exciting when people, even though they may not sit on this board, they continue to be involved. I think this is a great idea. I'm one of those people, though, that the devil's in the details. And I did go out and look at the policy that the city of Boulder has, and that does provide some structure of what the expectations are. And so for me, I would love to see us at least start with that process of sort of how do we set this up as a city? And then I certainly think your city would be a great one for us to continue.
Thank you.
So, and were you involved back when Boulder set forth their policies, or?
Yes.
You were?
I was.
Okay.
And I have a whole package of Boulder Lhasa, Boulder Jalapa, Boulder Kathmandu also. Okay. Boulder Kathmandu is the 10th city, with Boulder becoming Kathmandu becoming the 10th sister city. And I have that whole package, and this is just the informatory session today, and thank you for inviting me and giving me opportunity to speak tonight. And if you need, I have a whole process to go through. It will not be official until our two cities are registered in Washington. There is a International Sister City Committee. They have to recognize also to us. Okay. Then only we will be official. We just cannot just become a sister. Two mayors signing documents is not going to be official internationally. Okay. So there is a process to go through, which I have all that documents that we can put together.
Okay, great.
Okay? Yeah, thank you.
It sounds great. I mean, at least speaking for myself, I think this is the catalyst to start the process. And I think you're hearing general consensus around the board that we'd like to look at it more. But I got to say, I'm a little conflicted. My brother spent 2.5 years in the Peace Corps in Nepal. I spent a month in Nepal, and I contributed to your foundation. So I'm a little.
Yeah, you did.
I'm a little biased
here,
but I think it's a great opportunity for the town of Superior to potentially explore the sister city, and no other option right now. And I think your city would be a fantastic addition.
Thank you very much, Neil.
thank you very much for taking the initiative to come forth tonight and propose this idea. I echo a lot of the sentiments that have already been expressed by many of the other board members. I will say, though, that I definitely need to see a little bit more of the objectives of what this partnership would be. And I need to have a much better understanding of what the resource requirement from our town staff would also be to maintain the sister relationship, not just enter into it. One of my biggest concerns, and my background, I'm a fraud examiner, is not lightly lending our name as a town to relationships that we haven't fully vetted. To fully vet a relationship of this magnitude, in my mind, would require a lot of resources, and to ensure that any funds that are raised and sent over are going to be used in the proper manner. So starting to build the framework around that would be useful on my side. And then the second piece is I appreciate all your work with Boulder and the groundwork you've laid in the past. My concern, again, is we are not Boulder here in Superior. We are much smaller. Our resources are much more limited. We have budget meetings annually that we can't fund our own projects. So I want to make sure that anything we do end up contributing and the resources we do dedicate are not done so lightly, and that we're seeing a good tangible benefit from this relationship. So as we move forward, that's the type of information I would appreciate seeing and hearing.
Okay.
But thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Trista, thank you very much for coming and bringing this idea back to the board. I'm hearing general support to at least investigate this further and look at some next steps. So we will do that. And again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to continuing the dialogue on this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and then we'll look forward to working together again.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, the last item on our work session agenda is an interview with candidate Sarah Miller for ProStack. Welcome. If you'd like to start with giving a brief introduction on yourself and some questions from the board. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Miller. I live on 1505 South Bona Court, and I, as of like last weekend, I've been living in Superior for 5 years. And I'm a mother of a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and up until November, I was working full-time. So now I feel like I kind of have the bandwidth to contribute to the community, even though I've been wanting to in the past. It's just working full-time and being a mom and juggling everything else. You know, you only have so many hours in a day.
Great. Well, we appreciate you wanting to be a part of the committee. We'll have questions from the board. Ken?
Sarah, thank you for volunteering. Really appreciate it. Out of curiosity, why now? Why ProStack, and where do you want to come in and help improve in the town?
I've actually wanted to be on ProStack for a while now. I remember talking with you at the Colton Trailhead event a couple of years ago, kind of picking your brain about it. It's just, I know that spots have become available, and again, I was working full-time up until November, so I kind of have the bandwidth in my schedule to do this and the support of my husband.
Great. Are there any specific things that you'd like to see added to the community, or anything we can do better, or any goals you'd personally like to see ProStack accomplish in the next year or two?
I think as a mom using the playgrounds, I do have some ideas that I'd like to introduce to ProStack. One of them being shade, because I know like there's a lot of playgrounds that we can't use until after 10 o'clock in the morning because they just get too hot. So yeah, as a town resident that's using a lot of the ProStack facilities, I think I come with like a fresh pair of eyes.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for volunteering, Sarah. Have you been able to attend any ProStack meetings?
I just have been recently attended the recent ProStack meetings because of the River Bend project that's going to impact the close to our home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
What's your opinion on the
You know, I do think that a play structure playground is warranted in the third quadrant or the area 3 as we're, but I'm also a proponent that, that I don't want it in my backyard. So, I do think that it's warranted. We do have families over there with young kids. However, Riverbend Park is kind of an established park that I wouldn't want to see altered.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ken?
One more additional question. ProStack meets the third Wednesday of the month. Do you have any conflicts with that date, and can you commit to being able to attend the majority of meetings?
Yes, yeah, I have, if I do anything, I do it 110%, and that's another reason I haven't been able to commit to this, even though I've wanted to in the past, because again, I was working full-time. And my guy was little. Now he's 4. He's starting preschool next year, so, yeah.
Excellent. Just wanted to double check.
I have a question for the board. What is the commitment? Is it a 2-year commitment? Is it a 3-year commitment to be on ProStack?
It's a 3-year commitment.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments from the board? Okay. Thank you again for your interest. Final question I ask all of our applicants this, and that is, do you have any potentials for conflict of interest, like you have a side business consulting for park development or anything like that?
No.
Okay, most people don't, but we have to ask the question. So thank you again, and we'll be acting on this at a future meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And when will I possibly know an answer?
We typically put this on the agenda for the following meeting.
Okay.
So is that kind of the schedule we'll follow? The June 10th? June 8th?
So I'll know after that date?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. All right, we'll adjourn the work session and be back. June 10th. Okay, we'll adjourn the work session and we'll be back at 7 o'clock.